Okay, let's get started.
Great. Welcome to the Supplemental Essay Workshop. My name is Laura Campzano. I am from Smith College. I use she, her pronouns. I will let someone else introduce themselves.
Hi, everybody. Robert Ellis from Northwestern University. I use he, him pronouns.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth from the University of Notre Dame, and I also use she, her pronouns.
Hi, everyone. My name is Marie Nocella, and I work at Sarah Lawrence College, and I also use she, her pronouns. Thank you for joining us today.
All right. We will jump right in to what is a supplemental essay. So there are questions that are personalized to each college. Not every college will require them, and they're usually shorter than your Common App kind of general essay that you'll be writing. So for example, the University of Chicago has a supplemental essay and they say between 300 and 600 words, whereas here at Smith, we say no more than 250 words. So each school is going to be different. Just like with everything, you want to read the directions really clearly on what they're asking. And some schools can actually have more than one essay. UNC last year had 2. I've seen other schools that have multiples. But really what it can do for you is understanding that we're reading it after we read your personal statement, and it allows you to show another side of who you are. It can also convince us about your true interest in our college. And it also gives you a chance to show that you've done your research about our college. Often we're asking, and we're going to talk about what types of questions later on, but we're looking to see that you know a little bit about the college that you're applying to. What it won't do is it won't override a academic mismatch. And so in that sense, even though I think most of us would say that we're looking at applications in a holistic manner, it does give you another chance to show, but it won't, if we're looking for a certain, rigor before you come to college, you have to match that rigor. Wow, that went a lot faster than I expected it to. Does anybody have any questions? Seen anything so far? I will pass it along.
So why do we ask this? I think that's a very important question. I'm sure you're all like, wait, I've already worked so hard on my Common App essay or my personal statement. Why would I have to do more essays? That feels like a lot of work. To be honest, it's so you don't put a lot of strain on your personal statement. Instead, the personal statement is about who are you right now and who do you want to become? And so you don't feel like you have to also fit your personal statement to what you want to fit as a to your university fits. So this gives you a lot of space to not have to write in your personal statement. That's why I want to attend this university. Instead, we're going to give you plenty of space to talk about that in the supplemental itself. Certainly, the supplemental essay is incredibly important when it comes to research, because you want to make sure that you are picking and choosing to highlight parts of yourself that best align with what you wish to seek in the universities you're applying to. Certainly, some of these also may be a little bit more to a specific topic. For example, we're going to go through quite a few of those topics in a few minutes. But for us, the supplemental questions may be digging a little bit more deeply into something that you may not have been able to touch about in the personal statement, but we know is incredibly important to you. We know your identity is multifaceted, and so allowing you to have the space to touch on different spaces of your identity in different writing supplements is very helpful. And then finally, the supplement's a great way for us to envision you as a student. You are literally putting yourself right in our campus and saying, this is why it's a good fit for me. So having that space to really talk about that and to go into greater detail that you can't do in the personal statement is incredibly helpful for us as application readers and for future information as we continue to set your path into college, even post receiving your decision. So the second question is, what if an essay is optional? Certainly, there are some colleges that ask for optional essays. Optional does mean recommended in most cases. We wouldn't put it as an option if we didn't prefer that you use it. Why would we spend all that time reading essays that we don't even want? So certainly if you are given a choice of putting in more information, I always recommend more information is better. Information is power. So being able to provide more information as a student to your application reader, to the colleges you're interested in, is going to be incredibly helpful for us and incredibly helpful for you. For a variety, there are a lot of positives to us to filling out that optional essay. Obviously, showing off more of your writing skills, allowing us to get even more of a connection with you. I will say though, if you choose not to submit an optional essay, you should have a very good reason why. You can choose to write that in other places, or maybe there are other ways to present yourself that are just not, you don't want to pursue it in the writing aspect, but maybe you're going to choose to do an interview, for example, instead. That's fine, but you have to make sure there's a trade-off. You should not be just choosing not to do an optional essay because you don't want to. I think we can fairly say that most people will not want to write an essay. If you have the choice between doing nothing and doing something, the answer is always to do nothing. But for our case, there is something to be gained from having it. So please, please make sure that if you choose not to choose to write something, you have filled what we're looking for in those optional essays with another option, whether it's an interview or something else.
Nice. And so I'm going to kick us off talking about these frequently used prompts. And so what you'll find is that for supplemental essays, the prompts usually or often always have something to do with the values of an institution. And so the idea is that we want to see how you see yourself kind of within those values and how you envision yourself on our campus as well. And so you'll find if you look across different institutions that there are kind of these 5 frequently used prompts. You'll also find more unique prompts, like maybe about your summer reading list and things like that. But these are kind of the most frequently used prompts, kind of topics. And so the first one is the community member prompt. And so it's really asking you to envision yourself in a specific place or space or with specific people kind of on the campus. And for you to think about how you would utilize that space. And so when you think of community, you can think of it in a few different areas. Some of the things that we pulled out were place, action, interest, and circumstance. And so we want to know how you're going to be a part of the community. And so it might be that you write about an extracurricular activity that you're involved in now and how that translates to the community kind of on our campuses. And then that will help you to kind of envision yourself on campus. Or maybe you're really into kind of service work. And so you want to think about the opportunities that you have to service the community. And so it might be thinking, beyond the borders of the institution itself and thinking about the community that it's in and how you can help kind of make that community better. You also have the opportunity to talk about your interests as well. And a lot of these things overlap. And so what we're trying to gauge is who you are as a person and how you see yourself kind of in the community with all of the kind of prompts. But specifically, schools will ask you to write about kind of different spaces on campus or extracurricular activities that are available, student organizations, maybe utilizing entrepreneurial space and things like that. And so that's helping us to envision you as a community member. You always want to pick the option that gives you the greatest opportunity to share more about yourself. And so you don't want to fall into the trap of just specifically talking about the facts of the community itself. And so we know about those different things. We want to know how you see yourself utilizing the space and how that's going to help you grow, but also how you're going to help contribute to the community and help others grow as well. And so that's the community member prompt. There's also another prompt that really kind of like overlaps with that, which is kind of the diversity prompt. Often when folks think of diversity, the first thing that pops into their mind is race and ethnicity. But when colleges and universities are thinking about diversity, we're thinking about a lot of different things. We want folks from all different backgrounds, nationalities, religions, gender identity, different disability statuses, political and philosophical perspectives. And so you want to be able to kind of think about yourself in an intersectional way and think about how these different things kind of interact and how that impacts you in the way that you kind of move throughout kind of society and the world itself. And so, how does it impact you being a Indian, non-gender conforming student with political beliefs that are different than your family's? And like, how does that kind of inform why you want to be at our institution? Or how can our institutions help you to further take a deep dive into those identities? And how do you see yourself interacting? Or how do you see that we will support you in kind of those pursuits? And so it's important to be able to utilize the space that you have and to think about how much you can say. And so if you only have 200 words, it might not be as easy to talk about as many identities as possible, but you want to think about how different things intersect and how those interactions will show up kind of on campus, in the classroom, and outside of the classroom as well. You also want to think about how these identities make you unique. And so you're the only you that's there. And so it's just thinking about how your lived experience is impacted by the various identities that you have. And so we're not looking for anything in particular. And you don't have to. I think this year in particular, folks felt like they had to answer this particular question. But there are different ways that you can kind of talk about your identity and weave it in if you don't want to specifically talk about it throughout the other kind of frequently used prompts as well. And so just consider reflecting on interactions with those who do and do not hold these identities or share these identities, and kind of how those opportunities for interaction will help you learn and grow, but also help kind of better the community that you're going to be a part of.
Okay, the next question that we see oftentimes on these supplemental essays is the activities prompt. So that might be an opportunity for you to really share what is important to you, what it is that you do that you want to let us know about. Maybe it's a passion that you have or an achievement related to one of your activities. Maybe service is something that's really important to you. You really love working with kids and you want to tell us all about it. Maybe writing has been an outlet for you. Maybe it's really helped you work through some things. You don't necessarily have to go into specifics, but you can really talk about how you have that passion for writing and you want us to know all about that. Maybe you've been fortunate enough to travel quite a bit. Maybe you really enjoy learning about new peoples, new culture, new customs. You could write about that as something that is really interesting to you. That might tie to future things in college. It might tie to why you're looking at a particular college. It might tie to all kinds of things that you're looking to explore in college, but not necessarily. You really can just talk about, this is something that's important to me. And maybe you want to keep going with it. Maybe it is leading somewhere else, but it's really a passion for you, right? It's really central to, if we want to learn about you, this is something that I'm really passionate about and I want you to know about it. An achievement could be something that you're proud of. Maybe it's a leadership position and you can tell us what you learned about that or about yourself or about other people. It could be an award or a championship or an honor, but it doesn't necessarily have to be just that. It might be overcoming a struggle that you've achieved through an activity. Maybe you didn't quite make the team and you learned about yourself and what that means for you. Maybe through an activity you were able to overcome something else. So you really can use the activities prompt to talk about the activity itself, or really what it's done, what it's meant to you, how it's shaped you. So really what we're trying to get at is learning more about you. Again, like we talked about at the beginning. So for the activities prompt, what's your personal connection to that activity? Why do you want college admissions people like the four of us? Why do you want us to know about this? Why do you think that this activity, this accomplishment, this achievement, why is that important to know about you? What does it tell us about you as an applicant and a potential student on our campus? So is it something that you love? Is it a strength of yours that you'd really like to share? Is it an area of accomplishment? Is it something that you want to continue and you see a place for that on our campus? Maybe the college has a particular program or a particular opportunity that is really attractive to you about that campus. And that's really why you want to talk about your background in that area. And maybe one of the reasons you're applying to a particular college is because of those opportunities related to what you've done. Or maybe you haven't had experience about it, but it's an activity or related to a passion that you'd really like to take advantage of. You'd like to explore because that's an offering at that college. So there are really a lot of ways to take this activities prompt and really tell us, again, more about you and more about why this might be a good college for you. So rather than thinking, well, what do these people want to read about me? What should it say? What should it sound like? Well, I clearly should talk about being a leader because everybody wants leaders. Well, we can't have all campuses full of leaders, right? So it really shouldn't be about what you want us to know that you did and what maybe looks the shiniest on your resume, but what is really central to you, your interests, your personality. Because going back to the diversity prompt, we're looking at a lot of different things. We're looking at a whole community of students that have different interests and different backgrounds. So really focus on what your interests, what your passions are when you're thinking about that particular prompt. So the next 4th out of 5 general prompts that we see pretty often related to in these supplements is something related to academic interest. It could be a particular question. It could be a general, tell us about your academic interests, really. So you have the opportunity to really focus on what you're interested in at this point. And that might be a focused academic area, a focused program, a certain major or majors. Maybe it's a career goal, so it's a pre-professional track, pre-law, pre-vet, pre-dental, something along those lines. Or maybe you're undecided. Personally, I like to use the word multi-decided because no students have no interests whatsoever, right? Oftentimes you have a lot of different interests. So what can you really do with this prompt? If you have a particular interest or a particular career goal or track in mind, you can talk about how you first got interested in this subject. Was it a teacher? Was it an experience? Was it somewhere you went? Was it something you heard on the news? How did you get interested in this subject? And then how did you expand upon that? Did you learn about it? Did you do research? Did you talk to people in the field? Did you do some kind of camp or job shadowing, right? How did you explore this interest? What have you done with it since it kind of got on your radar? And then what are your plans for the future? Is this a career goal? Is this something that you're thinking about pursuing personally, maybe alongside a career or for your career? What are your thoughts for the future related to this academic interest that you have right now? For students that are multi-decided, you can really emphasize your curiosity. Maybe you're curious about a lot of different things. That's a good thing, right? Maybe you have particular areas in maybe 2 or 3 different things, and you're trying to figure out what it is that you're going to do with all of those interests. You can really talk about that curiosity and why those things are interesting to you, or maybe how you've always been curious in one particular thing or a lot of different things. Maybe you like to help people. Maybe you like to analyze things. Maybe you like to take things apart. Maybe you like to research things. Those could end up leading to career interests or academic areas of interest, but those are interests that you already have that you can talk about those areas as well. It doesn't have to be a particular academic subject that you focus on. Maybe you're looking to combine interests. Maybe you're looking at an interdisciplinary area of study. Maybe you're looking at colleges with an open curriculum that don't have majors. And you're really looking to study a wide variety of things and figure out how they do or they don't fit together for your career path. So those are all kinds of things that you can really discuss in that academic interest prompt. Specifically, if you're going to be looking at these different colleges, relate it to what they might offer. So if you're not sure, you're looking for interdisciplinary and you're looking for a school with an open curriculum, those are things that you should lean into. If you're applying to a particular program or a particular area, really lean into why that college's program, how they do things, how their curriculum set up is a good fit for you or is of interest to you. So do talk about your interests, but really try to relate it to what that college offers, because again, we're looking at these to find out more about you and find out more about you as a fit for that college. So make sure you tie it together with things that you see at that school that might be a great fit for you. Okay. And now I'm going to pass it over to Elizabeth for your 5th prompt.
So this 5th prompt is fairly common. I think this is probably, if we're going to choose one, this is the one that you're most likely to see of why do you want to come here? Like what brings you to this specific university? Marie, I think your concept of being multi-decided rather than undecided is really good, especially for this kind of prompt, because no one is choosing a university, or I hope they're not choosing a university off of one singular aspect. Instead, you want to choose a university that's the fit for an intersectionality for a variety of your interests. Maybe you really love being in a city and you also love a really close-knit community, and so you look for a smaller city-based university. Or maybe you really love biochemistry and you also love student government, and then you find programs that allow for you to explore a multidisciplinary approach to college. And so this question is a fantastic opportunity to bridge that gap between those interests to find the right fit for you. Certainly, when it comes to questions, this is the one where you want to do a ton of research, because you want to make sure you are choosing a college that actually does fit your interests. I would hate for you to say, one of my non-negotiable things that I want to go to college is do a study abroad program, and then you apply to a university that doesn't have a study abroad program. That would be kind of a red flag of maybe they didn't do enough research into this university. So certainly be careful with these prompts, because it is very easy to trip up on this one, specifically because it seems so simple. Oh my gosh, I love this university because of its prestige or because of what it offers in this specific program. It's very easy to say that one thing, but we want to also learn about you, and we want to quite literally put you on our campus. So make sure you take the time to really think about, am I coming for a variety of reasons, and I'm going to live here for the next 4 years? So really take the time to make that essay full and vibrant and worth it. The other thing that I should note about this is that because this question is so common, there's often the mistake of students taking one chunk of text and then quite literally substituting the name of the university and copying and pasting it into each supplement. I know I'm seeing all of my fellow counselors nodding their heads right now. That, I will say, is a mistake. because we do know, we are aware when you do a copy and paste or very cookie cutter approach to this, because we know every university is different. And so if you're responding the same way, the impersonal response is very easy to see, especially because we have other prompts and other writing supplements to compare to. You can't have this really personal and lovely personal statement and then you talk about how strong the academics are and how great the community is, but then don't give any other detail when you go into the specific essays related to the university you're applying to. So make sure that you're thinking about this as a full package. So whenever you're writing this, especially this last essay, that is arguably one of the most important too. Why are you spending the money, or why are you thinking about applying here? Why are you spending the however much time it takes to write this essay to apply to this school? Why did you choose to take that time? That's what we're asking for. Certainly, if you're struggling to figure out where to start looking, we have some great resources right here on this slide of who to talk to or what to look for to start having that conversation of what are the right schools for me. Certainly for this essay, if you have opportunities to visit, I highly recommend it. There were many negatives to COVID, but one of the biggest positives was how much universities are more accessible to you as well. So if you're not able to, for example, make it to the Midwest to visit the University of Notre Dame, we do have fantastic online resources as well to see what student life is like so that you can learn a little bit more before trying to answer this question and really get a personal experience. I would also highly recommend talking to people. People are always your greatest resource. Hearing their experiences, understanding what they went through, the bad, the good, the bad, the ugly for the universities they attended. So you start to see what do I like, what do I not like. I always tell students when you're thinking about schools, you should be thinking about it as what are my must-haves, what are my I should have, or the things that I can live without, and what are my absolutely must not haves. Make sure to recognize that colleges are a variety of those things. You may have some things that you may not want, but you'll have, and you may have some things that you wish you had, but you may not be able to. It's always a compromise. So in this essay, we want to be able to understand what are your top things that connect you to this university and you want to spend all that time. Certainly, we do many counselors do a variety of programming, much like this, high school visits, online programming. So you'll have opportunities to also speak to college representatives and always come to our websites. We work incredibly hard to make those websites user-friendly. And if you can't find any of those, I'm a deep believer of picking up the phone and just calling. If you have a question, just reach out. We're lovely people. We like to hear our own voices. So certainly, if you have questions and you want to understand your right fit for the university in order to answer questions like this, certainly we're just a phone call away. The last thing I should say about this is read into the mission statements. What values are incredibly important when it comes to picking colleges, because you want to feel like you are seen and heard and acknowledged, and your identity is important, which are all things that we've talked about in all of these prompts. And that's what we're getting at, is we want to make sure that your identity is going to be supported and well associated and aligned with what you're going to experience at that university. So really go into detail of what does this university seek? What are their priorities? And if you don't feel like the values they have align with your values, it's also okay to say, you know what? Maybe this isn't for me, and maybe there's something else that's better for me. Certainly going into that mission statement is going to be fantastic for preparing for this essay and preparing for where you want to go next.
All right. So let's talk about some pitfalls that we see on occasion in the supplemental essays. Sometimes we just see people telling us facts and not connecting them back to your interests or your passions or your goals even. Tell us how, I called it X, how this one fact will help you achieve those goals. Elizabeth mentioned the copy and paste. We definitely see that. I mean, to the point where I've actually seen other schools where it didn't get corrected. So please, I see lots of nods. Please take the time to, if you're going to answer the supplemental for that college and you feel passionate about going to that college, make sure that you're writing that supplemental specifically for them. So I said, one of the things that we as admissions people spend a lot of time on our website. We know it really, really well. So we're going to identify if you've just literally copy and pasted straight off the website too. And again, tying it back to how the college and what it stands for, or whatever your question you're answering is really going to help you achieve your goals. Also, remember, and I think we started off here, is we will have already read your personal statement. So don't repeat what is already in the personal statement. This is a chance for you to go someplace else, a chance to share more, to go deeper into something maybe you just touched on. But please don't just repeat yourself. And those are the big ones that we see for pitfalls. And really, this is the chance for you to ask your questions and chat, and let
I
us
have a
know.
question. Hi, it's Miss Heald. I have a question. So you all take supplemental essays. I'm just curious, what do you find to be more valuable, the personal statement or the supplemental? Because it seems to me the supplementals are more geared towards your specific school. And it could be different for each one of you, but you know, kids write their personal statement and sometimes they come in here and they'll say to me, how important is the supplemental? It's really the personal statement that matters, right? So I'm just curious, you know, what the weight is for each of those, please.
I can take a jump at this one. I like to describe the supplementals and the personal statements. I first of all, I always work in analogies and metaphors. So if I mix analogies and metaphors, just go with it. But it's really like if a student is, for lack of a better comparison, a watercolor or a painting. The personal statement is going to give a lot of color to what they're passionate about and add a lot of the details and the trees and the main figures that is this watercolor. But the supplemental essays are also there to provide more color and space to this painting that is the individual. So there is no one that is more important than the other. All of it should be taken time that is reflective of the amount of work it requires. The personal statement is about a 750 word statement, while the supplementals are going to be 250, somewhere between 350 words. So certainly time wise, you're going to want to spend more time in the personal statement because there are more words and there's more required to fill out that statement. But you should not forget the supplementals. I know we just talked about mistakes. We can also tell if it was rushed. If you write those supplementals at the last possible moment, we can tell because you haven't put that time in. You need there's a reason why we start writing the personal statements for many students in late junior year, during the summer, early senior year. So you have lots and lots of time to get that done. You should not ignore the supplementals. Also, thinking of it on an application reader side, we are putting in the time to read your application. Make our time worth it too. Don't give us something that's not going to make us excited about you, because then all of a sudden you have spent a lot of time writing this and we're spending a lot of time reading it, and then it's not really actually paying off. So both are incredibly important and give breadth to the individual when you may not have been able to in the personal statement.
Thank you. Students, please if you don't want to speak, put your questions in the chat. This is your opportunity. And if you have specific questions about these schools, I think they would welcome them as well.
So I received a question in my chat directly, and I will ask the question and then let one of my colleagues answer it. But the question I received is it important to have a passion project? Does not having one impact the college's impression on the applicant?
That sort of relates to my side, so I can handle it first, and then feel free to jump in or fill in, colleagues. You don't have to have a passion project. And if you're referring to that specific activities prompt where we talked about passion, that could be an opportunity if you do have one to talk about it. That would be a great thing to talk about for that particular prompt. But that's certainly not the only thing you can use that prompt for. It doesn't have to be something that you've had. If you've done that, great, talk about it. But if you don't have a passion project yet in your life, maybe that's something you'll find later, but there, I'm sure, are a lot of other things, not only things that you've been involved with or things that are important to you, but other prompts and other facets of who you are that can be important to talk about. So one thing that I mentioned was not to focus on what you think we want to hear. So, oh, I have to talk about this. How did I do that? Let me cram what I've done, or let me cram what my interests are in to fit what I think that they want to hear from me. We can also tell when you do that because it doesn't come off as a genuine interest. It doesn't come off with your natural voice. It doesn't seem like you are passionate about it. It seems like you're writing about it because you have to write about it. So that's why we really tell you, write about something that is important to you. Think about the 5 most important things to you in your life. Write about those things, not about something you think that you should.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll read a couple other questions that we just have gotten. What tone should supplementals be written in?
I'm happy to talk about this one. I think we're looking for authentic and genuineness. And whatever tone works for you in that sense is what I would tell you. You know, I'm also kind of going to segue into that next question about having a singular academic passion and activities. I think, when you talk about genuineness and you talk about you have a real passion for something, I think it's about, in that case, delving deeper and taking that authentic tone to it. If we see that all your essay is kind of talking about this one thing, then maybe take a different approach or tone to the same topic and tell us more about, it's hard to only have one subject, but maybe how it's influenced your life and your friends, right? Like you can take a different tone in that way with just one topic. Yeah, if you can do it well, you can make that one topic work, but you have to take a very different approach to the topic in your supplemental, is what I would tell you.
Thank you. Okay, we have somebody who was a little late and they said, is it advisable to use the full character limit provided, or is it more effective to focus on concise and impactful responses, even if they fall short of the maximum length?
I can take this one. It's kind of visually, if you see a short answer, sometimes it makes you feel like there wasn't any effort there. But when we're done reading it and we're like, oh, no, they actually really did answer this question in 3 sentences, like that's perfectly fine. And so it's really a question of, do you feel like the question was answered? And then what is the message that you're sending to the reader about kind of your level of effort? And so striking a balance is nice. You'll find that 250 words is really not a lot of space, generally speaking. And so sometimes you'll find it harder to answer the question in that space anyway. But a shorter answer isn't necessarily a bad answer, as long as you fully address the question. And a lot of these supplemental questions are a little bit more complex than they seem. And so there might be 2 or 3 kind of things that we're hoping that you'll kind of tackle in the question. And so it's just making sure that you've read the question and that you understand it, that you understand that you answered it or not. And so it's really up to your writing style as well. So at Northwestern, we have 6 undergraduate schools. And so the engineering students tend to write less. And we just kind of see that because writing's not their focus, whereas the English majors are a little bit more verbose. So, we also think about those things when we're reviewing your application as well.
I have a question for each of you. I would love for each of you to answer. If you were in charge of creating the application for your school, what piece of information would you want to have included on that application that would help you more with your decision on that student?
I'll take a swing at this one first. For Notre Dame, So Notre Dame, if you don't know a lot about us, we are a Catholic school in South Bend, Indiana, so about 2 hours east of Chicago. And we are, as a Catholic university, we are incredibly, incredibly intense towards mission alignment and service-oriented students, and really thinking, and I'm sure I'm speaking for all the schools, that we want good people. Like, we really, when we're talking about applications, when we read applications, we talk about not just, are they academically good fits for Notre Dame? Are they gonna kick butt on research and all that lovely stuff? But are they also going to be thinking outside of themselves? Are they good humans? And so certainly, if I had $1 million and had total unrestricted access to the application and no one was holding me back, nothing, no other priorities at stake, the questions would be more focused on intent rather than achievement. So I know a lot of students, I actually just had another session a few hours ago where lots of students love to fill their applications with honors and achievements and say they did that 1 hour of service at the soup kitchen to say they did it. But what's important to us is why. Why did you do that? Why do you care about serving others? What is driving you? So for us, in all of our essays, you'll see that that's what we're trying to tap into as much as we can, while also getting concrete information about our students of who are you, not just on paper, but what's going on in your brain, what's going on behind here, and what's going to pursue you forward. And so you'll see that especially in our essays this year, but over the last several years. You'll also see in our mission statement of just very service-oriented people. It doesn't have to be massive. It could be something as simple as organizing a 10K to raise money for a local group of people who are struggling, but it's why you do it that we really want to hear about, not necessarily the what's.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, Northwestern a few years ago, maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, we used to ask a question, and it was like, what is your most impactful or important extracurricular activity? And so it was on our supplement, and it wasn't about Northwestern. It was just like, you wrote your personal essay, and maybe you didn't talk about the things you're involved in the community. And so we wanted to provide an optional space for students to be able to talk about that. And it seemed that year that people were a little bit more relieved about kind of what it was that they wrote about. We got a little less kind of information or questions regarding, should I write about this or write about that? Because they had the opportunity to write about both without it being about Northwestern. And I think giving students a little bit more opportunity to talk about what it is that they really want to talk about. We can tell you all day that you should write your personal statement about what you want to write about. But often students will choose to write about something that they think we want to read about. And so just giving a space for students to be able to write about what they are really wanting to tell us would be really nice. I like this question in that I oversee transfer admission at Northwestern as well. And I did have the opportunity to add a question. And all of our questions are like super complex. And then my question is, why do you want to transfer to Northwestern? And it was the most impactful change to our application that I feel like we've ever had. So I agree with Elizabeth that just not talking about achievements, but what is your intent is kind of really nice.
Thank you. Do we
Just-
have, oh, sorry, go
Oops.
ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, so, Smith is a gender inclusive women's college, so we have, a different feel, and we're looking for a little bit more specific student in a way. But I think building off what both Elizabeth and Robert said, which is that, the context and the intent is really why, admissions officers say this phrase a lot, it depends, right? And it's because we want to understand context. And so, whether it's in your essay or whether it's in your supplemental questions, or even if you put it in additional information, which is a great little spot for helping us understand context of different things. I want to understand the context of what's going on. So that would be mine.
Our application is a little bit different than many in that we only require very few things. And then we say, send in whatever else you think we should know. So we have 4 different supplemental essay prompts that you can choose from, or you can have a personal interview, or you can send in additional letters of recommendation, or you can upload creative things, whether that's writing or videos or art portfolios. So we say, send us whatever you want so that we can get to know you better. Those things are really helpful because it's the students choosing to share with us what they want to share with us. When I see an application where a student didn't choose to do any of that, that's where I wish we required them to send us something. Still choose whatever you want. If you feel like a conversation is better to get to know you than writing one of these supplements, great. But if you're not taking that step, going back to the optional is really required, is many times very strongly required. I wish more students understood that it really isn't trying to give you more work, but it really is trying to understand and get more information about who you are and why you could be a good fit.
Thank you. That was so helpful. Are there any other questions? Either for the chat or to unmute yourself? Okay, well, as I mentioned at the beginning, I have recorded this session. I will download it later today. I will send it to all of your college advisors. And it will also be added to the summer workshop schedule. Thank you all so much for being here today. We look forward to seeing you in our schools in the fall. So anyway, oops, sorry, somebody, oh no, that's just to me. Anyway, thank you so much and have a great rest of your summer.